Okay, so Amelia, you're helping me judge today. What makes a good poem in your opinion?
It's about how they stand about their position and about alliteration and how they speak.
Good. So I think they've got to be nice and clear as well. What do you think, Amelia? Do you agree?
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much, Amelia.
The Vikings were fierce and brutal. Poor England was under attack. The Saxon king fought for some peace, and some peace was brought. But those Vikings just kept on coming back. They sailed to Britain in long boats. "Let's go Viking," they yelled. So they did, with axes held high and a glint in their eyes. Many Britons just ran and then hid. When a new wave of Vikings raids started, poor King Ethelred struggled to cope. So Danegeld he paid to try and stop raids, but the Vikings came back in their boats. The Danegeld couldn't contain them, and Ethelred got called the Unready. It was simply not funny. They're after more and more of my money. I'm fleeing abroad instead. In the end, some Vikings liked it in Britain. They enjoyed the English way. They sent for their wives and started new lives. The Vikings were here.
Vikings were fierce and brutal. Poor England was under attack. The Saxon kings fought and some peace was brought. But those Vikings just kept on coming back. The Vikings made Britain poor, so they couldn't get more and lured them into bankrupt. Britain schemed, but they seemed to like just doing step one over and over. The Vikings loved making Ethelred poor, even more than fighting and breaking the laws. The vicious, vast Viking warriors, they got a lot of silver and money. They left Britain bare and in fair. In the end, some Vikings liked Britain. They enjoyed the English way. They sent for the wives and started new lives. The Vikings were here to stay.
The Vikings were fierce and brutal. Poor England was under attack. The Saxon kings fought and some peace was brought. But those Vikings just kept coming back. The Vikings stole gallons of gold. They hunted people with their mighty axe. The Vikings were bad, but with money was glad. The people are soon out of tax. They travelled all over the place with their ships. When they came back from a place called Dane, who knew what they did? Like when they ran to hid. These Vikings were such a pain. King Ethelred had to pay Danegeld. Ethelred was so unready, but he had his own way. But the Vikings had to stay. His hands weren't even steady. In the end, some Vikings liked it in Britain. They enjoyed the English way. They sent for their wives and started new lives. The Vikings were here to stay.
The Vikings were fierce and brutal. Poor England was under attack. The Saxon kings fought and some peace was brought, but those Vikings just kept coming back. The Vikings sailed to Britain on their fabulous longships. The Vikings were cuckoo with axes and swords. They flung them around in the bright blue sky. The British ran and hid. When they fell, they kept on coming and coming. King Ethel just didn't know what to do. So Danegeld he paid to stop the ugly Vikings' raid. But they just but they just come back in boats. The danglers couldn't be paid, so he was called the unready. This isn't funny. They're coming for my money. I'm living this place right now. In the end, some Vikings liked it in Britain. They enjoyed the English way. They sent for their wives and started new lives. The Vikings were here to stay.
Were fierce and brutal. For England was under attack. The Saxon kings fought and some peace was brought, but those Vikings just kept coming back. When they arrived to Britain, they yelled, "Go Vikings, go!" Yes, of course, more Vikings fought and no peace was brought, and the Vikings won all the attacks. The Vikings came over the waves and came over to invade. King Ethelbert kept on paying. Too silly to know the Vikings kept on invading. Tax just couldn't contain them. King Ethelred finally realised they were after money. King Ethelred kept on giving. Anglo-Saxons were not happy. They just want our money. In the end, some Vikings liked it in Britain. They enjoyed the English way. They sent for their wives and started new lives. The Vikings were here to stay.
Vikings were fierce and brutal. Poor England were under attack. The Saxon kings fought and some peace was brought. But the Vikings just kept coming back. When the Vikings came back, they demanded more money and were paid 20,000 in silver. But the Vikings weren't done and were feeling quite sneaky. Let's go back and raid and get us more money. The process is called Danelaw, which means pay the Danes. King Ethelred was getting complaints every day. In the end, some Vikings did like it in Britain. They liked the English way. They called for their wives and started new lives. The Vikings were here to stay.
Vikings were fierce and brutal. Poor England were under attack. The Saxon king fought and some peace was brought, but the Vikings just kept coming back. The Vikings set sail in Britain. Those mighty Viking Danes looking for money, they weren't really funny. Young Ethelred the Unready wasn't really deadly and came to a Viking who was not really liking. They came to a deal which was not to kill but to keep on giving money until they were happy. In the end, some Vikings liked it in Britain. They liked the English way. They sent for their wives and started new lives. The Vikings were here to stay.
The Vikings were fierce and brutal. Poor England was under attack. The Saxon kings fought and some peace was brought. But those Vikings just kept coming back. The Vikings travelled to Britain all the time. Refusing to leave, they killed and stole, leaving people robbed of their gold. They just kept invading as Ethelred's army kept fading. His foolish side came as he paid them and lost all his fame. Pathetic, unwise, King Ethelred, why? Just kept coming, nobody slept in bed. The very vicious Vikings always asked for money continuously. Villagers hid, clinging onto their lives. Finally, they decided to settle in the growth of a few nettles. In the end, they liked it in Britain. They enjoyed the English ways. They sent for their wives and started new lives. The Vikings were here to stay.